In the 6 years that should have been the most vibrant of Gario's life, from the summer at 23 when Gario tossed a bachelor's cap into the air with boundless dreams, to now at 29, staring into a mirror at a haggard face and dull eyes, this period, meant to be adorned with lipstick, perfume, trendy clothes, and travel photos, has been shrouded in an inescapable gray haze. Gario's vanity sits empty, the last tube of mascara, long dried out, stubbornly clumped despite being diluted with toner time and again. Gario's closet is filled mostly with cheap fast fashion items, snatched up during clearance sales on shopping apps through group buys with strangers. Gario's life could have been a sunlit path to a stable, loving relationship, a respectable and fulfilling career, and a cozy, carefully curated home. But a single fatal obsession deep within, a refusal to settle for the ordinary and a craving for shortcuts, led Gario to push themselves into the abyss of gambling. This dark vortex not only mercilessly devoured Gario's youthful bloom, but also turned Gario into a cold-blooded executioner, severing two relationships that could have blossomed into something real. It upended Gario's life, leaving them to scrape by like a specter in the city's gutters, and ultimately eroded the last shred of trust Gario's parents had in them. 6 years, over 2,000 days and nights, are tied to a chilling figure, a net loss exceeding $1.5 million. Today, Gario chooses to type out this heart-rending, scarred past word by word, not in hopes of pity or sympathy, but to make a final, unflinching break with the self ruled by greed and lies through this raw, unreserved confession, and to grasp at the possibility of rebirth. The urge to pour out this story took root in Gario's heart 2 years ago, when Gario was teetering on the edge of collapse after a second dead explosion. Countless nights, jolted awake by nightmares, Gario would open their phone, lurking anonymously in Reddit's gambling recovery forums or listening to podcasts about gamblers' tales. Like a starving soul, Gario searched for their own reflection in others' ruined lives, seeking the perverse comfort of knowing Gario isn't the only one who's failed this badly. Each time Gario read about staggering cases, people losing seven-figure sums, a fierce impulse surged to lay bare their own story. Yet, when Gario sat down to write, they noticed that nearly all the widely shared stories were tear-stained accounts of male gamblers struggling in the mire. Women's voices, in that sea of regret and despair, were so faint they were barely audible. An indescribable shame and loneliness, unique to women, clamped around Gario's throat like an invisible shackle, stifling their courage. Gario dreaded the potential judgment, the harsher scrutiny a woman addicted to gambling might face. Only recently did Gario notice a shift in the tide, as more women with experiences like Gario's bravely chose to break their silence. Their delicate yet sincere words dissected how they were tempted, how they sank, and how they clawed their way out of despair. Their honesty, resilience, and courage to face the abyss pierced Gario's inner walls like rays of light, deeply inspiring them. Gario finally realized that silence doesn't rewind time or heal wounds. It only lets the poison fester in the dark. Only by exposing it to the sunlight and facing it with unflinching honesty can true redemption be possible. So on this ordinary afternoon, Gario brewed a cup of coffee, sat by the window, and decided to stop hiding, to stop running, and to lay bare these 6 years of absurdity and downfall in their entirety. The turning point of Gario's life was starkly drawn in the first year after college graduation. Gario graduated from a decent private university with a degree in art history, a field brimming with beauty and passion, but awkwardly out of place in the job market. While classmates flocked to high-paying industries like finance and tech, Gario, clutching a seemingly prestigious diploma, hit wall after wall in talent-saturated Los Angeles. Gario's family could offer little support. Gario's parents, blue-collar workers from the Midwest, had poured everything into funding Gario's education, which was the greatest gift they could give. After months of rejections and exhaustion, Gario surrendered to reality, landing a job as a barista at a bustling downtown Starbucks. Trading a cap and gown for a green apron, Gario's days became a mechanical loop of, "Hello, what can I get started for you?" and crafting lattes and cappuccinos amid the roar of the steam wand. The job paid a meager $3,000 a month after taxes. For a young woman in one of America's priciest cities, this barely covered rent, transportation, and basic groceries, leaving nothing for extras. Gario watched themselves transform from a romantic, idealistic young woman into a tiny, expendable cog in the city's relentless machine. In that monotonous, oppressive routine, Gario's co-worker Olivia shone like a strange beam of light into Gario's bleak existence. Around Gario's age, she exuded a calmness beyond her years. During lunch breaks, while the rest of us crammed into the tiny break room, griping about rude customers and inadequate pay, Olivia sat quietly in the corner, fingers flying across her phone screen, a cryptic smile on her face. She never joined our complaints, as if our troubles were mere fleeting clouds to her. Gario once witnessed a scene that would haunt them forever. Olivia casually transferred $500 via Cash App to an online account, then played a dazzling, fast-paced online slot machine game. In just 10 minutes, with a burst of triumphant sound effects, her smile widened as her balance climbed to over $1,000. The image of wealth doubling with a few taps, effortless and swift, hit Gario's weary soul like a nuclear blast. Unable to contain their curiosity, Gario invited Olivia for a drink after work and cautiously asked for the website's address. In that moment, a dangerous yet irresistibly seductive thought took root in Gario's barren heart. If Gario could win even $200 a day like her, that's $6,000 a month, far more than Gario earned slaving away all day, even surpassing many office workers' salaries. Gario's life, perhaps, could be rewritten. Back then, online gambling platforms thrived in a loosely regulated gray zone, far less restricted than today. No need for complex cryptocurrency transactions to dodge scrutiny, no fear of bank accounts being frozen for suspicious activity. Through PayPal or Venmo, funds transferred instantly, the process so smooth and convenient it barely felt like handling real money, more like topping up a mobile game. Gario signed up, diving into fast-paced slot games like the ones Olivia played. These games were engineered to exploit human weaknesses, with rounds every few minutes, minimizing waiting anxiety and maximizing the thrill feedback loop. In the brief pause before the results appeared, Gario's heart would tighten, breathing quickening, a mix of tension, anticipation, and fear sending adrenaline soaring like never before. Gario quickly became addicted to that rush. At first, Gario approached it like a disciplined scientist, adhering to a scientific betting strategy. Start with a $50 bet. If it lost, double to $100. If it won, drop back to $50. This doubling method, beloved by gamblers, seemed to promise inevitable victory in theory, giving Gario a false sense of control. For the first few days, the system worked like magic. Gario consistently pocketed around $200 daily. Those days, Gario's world seemed repainted in vivid colors. Walking the streets of LA, Gario no longer felt inferior or insignificant. Their steps felt light, almost buoyant, filled with the secret glee of having discovered a personal ATM. But the devil of gambling never lets you walk away unscathed. It waits for your weakest, most unguarded moment to bear its fangs. One weekend, Gario and their then-boyfriend Ethan got into a heated argument over trivial plans for the future. Ethan, a grounded architect with clear, steady life goals, clashed with Gario's restless, speculative mindset, creating subtle cracks in their values. Fuming and depressed after the fight, Gario turned to the familiar gambling site to vent their frustration and prove they could thrive without anyone's help. This time, luck abandoned Gario entirely. A $50 bet vanished. Gario doubled to $100, only to lose again. Then $200, $400, $800. Gario, like an enraged bull, eyes bloodshot, abandoned all reason, frantically doubling bets with one obsessive thought roaring. I don't believe this streak. The next one will win it all back. When the last cent in the account disappeared, panic seized Gario. Unwilling to accept defeat, Gario, in a near-manic state, dumped their entire $12,800 savings, their hard-earned nest egg, into the site. Gario collapsed onto their shared apartment's single bed, boneless. When a roommate, concerned by Gario's pallor, tried to talk, their words sounded muffled, as if through thick glass. Gario's world narrowed to the spinning, colorful, yet mercilessly cold patterns on the screen. Two thoughts tore at Gario's mind, one hysterically praying for a miracle, the other coldly whispering the inevitable outcome. When the final spin delivered its verdict, the world went silent. All savings, including that month's paycheck, vanished in an instant. Gario scrounged through pockets and wallets, finding less than $200 in cash, not even enough for next month's rent. Those days, Gario's life felt muted, drained of color, leaving only black and white. Like a soulless husk, Gario stared at the ceiling all night, unable to sleep, and fumbled through shifts in a daze, botching coffee orders and earning sharp rebukes from the manager. Dreams of art history faded, replaced by a prisoner-like longing for the next paycheck. But when that $3,000 lifeline arrived, the same addictive craving obliterated Gario's reason. Gario promised themselves they'd be cautious, play just a few rounds to recoup some losses, and stop. Predictably, during a few lunch breaks in the Starbucks break room, that money vanished too. Dragging leaden legs back to the dorm, an unprecedented, suffocating despair engulfed Gario. Then, Gario stumbled upon a buy now, pay later loan feature in a payment app, Gario's first brush with online lending. After a quick ID check and credit review, the system offered a generous $20,000 plus limit. That night, it felt like divine intervention. Gario withdrew it all, and in a reckless, devil-may-care frenzy, miraculously won back $20,000. Gario paid off the loan immediately, and with a small profit left, a euphoric sense of survival washed over them. Gario rushed out at midnight, splurging on the priciest beer and snacks, inviting roommates to celebrate. Naively, foolishly, Gario believed they'd cracked the game's code. Use borrowed money to bet, pay it back if you win, keeping your own funds safe while pocketing pure profit. What a perfect, brilliant business model. Of course, such luck was merely the casino's bait to drag you deeper into hell. Gario never replicated that night's triumph. The winnings vanished quickly, and clinging to false hope, Gario borrowed another $20,000. Predictably, it disappeared like water into sand. Crushing loan interest weighed like an invisible mountain, but instead of stopping, Gario, like a desperate gambler borrowing from loan sharks, scoured the internet for more lending platforms, from mainstream fintech apps to shady, high-interest payday loans. In 6 months, Gario's debt snowballed to a staggering $140,000. Harassed daily by relentless collection calls, Gario neared a mental breakdown. With no other choice, Gario made the call they dreaded most, confessing to their parents back home. The line fell silent for agonizing minutes, a silence more shattering than any rage. Then came their mother's stifled sobs and their father's heavy, aged sigh. They didn't berate Gario much, just quietly emptied their life savings, their retirement fund for old age and emergencies, wiped out by their daughter's folly and greed. Their parents' hard-earned money patched Gario's hole temporarily, but the tumor of unwillingness to settle wasn't excised. After clearing the debt, Gario hypnotized themselves, believing the losses stemmed not from gambling itself, but from reckless play and unbalanced emotions. If Gario controlled their emotions, bet smaller, they could slowly win back the losses, even their parents' retirement fund. Clinging to this fatal delusion, Gario, like an addict unable to quit, returned to the virtual table. 6 months later, history repeated with crueler precision. Gario racked up another $200,000 in debt. This time, Gario had no courage to face their parents. That new year, while others reveled in family reunions, Gario lied, claiming a visit to Ethan's family. In reality, Gario hid alone in a cold LA rental, curtains drawn, battling the screen's demons all night. Ethan, the diligent architect with dreams for our future, became Gario's last lifeline and most shameful prey. Exploiting his unwavering trust and love, Gario spun plausible excuses, from family emergencies to a great short-term investment, to siphon his $160,000 savings, meant for our future home's down payment. Unsurprisingly, Gario threw it all into the bottomless pit. When he gently asked about the investment's returns, panic gripped Gario. Unable to keep lying, Gario chose the coward's way out, staging a hysterical fight, accusing him of fabricated wrongs, breaking up, and fleeing our shared apartment, blocking all contact. With near cruelty, Gario dodged the unpayable debt and crushing betrayal. Gario's second confession came on a stormy afternoon via video call. This time, it unleashed their mother's full, hysterical collapse. Seeing Gario's gaunt face, she pounded her chest, sobbing, cursing Gario as a debt-collecting demon, a family disgrace. At her breaking point, she screamed she'd rather die with Gario to end it all. Her tear-streaked, pain-twisted face seared into Gario's heart like a red-hot brand. Only then did Gario truly, belatedly grasp the catastrophic, irreversible damage they'd inflicted on her and the family. Yet, Gario's parents, swallowing their pride, begged relatives and friends to scrape together $200,000 to fill Gario's bigger hole. After this near-family-destroying blow, Gario seemed to finally wake up. Leaving scarred Los Angeles, Gario moved to a slower-paced town, taking an online customer service job at a major e-commerce platform. For 2 years, Gario lived like a monk. The demanding, fulfilling work became a sanctuary. Handling hundreds of daily customer queries and complaints, often enduring unwarranted blame, Gario found an unprecedented sense of stability and peace. Throwing themselves into work, Gario became a team standout. Saving money again, watching the account grow from zero, the tangible security of honest labor was something Gario never felt at the gambling table. In those 2 years, Gario saved $80,000 to $90,000 and didn't touch gambling once. Gario even thought they were fully healed. But stability didn't last. As Gario regained footing, their parents began pressing about marriage, eager for Gario to find a reliable partner and start a normal family to bury the past. During a family video call, Gario met Noah, their new boyfriend. A high school teacher, steady, kind, and endlessly patient, he cared for Gario deeply. His presence, like warm sunlight, revived Gario's deadened heart. But just as their relationship deepened and Gario believed a new chapter was beginning, fate struck again. Gario's company, undergoing restructuring, laid off many employees, including Gario. Sudden unemployment shattered Gario's income and fragile order. Doubt and fear plunged Gario back into darkness. The suppressed demon, sensing weakness, reared its ugly head. Gario reassured themselves. Things were different now, with savings and maturity. They'd play briefly, when enough to bridge the jobless gap, and stop. Relapse always starts with sweet illusions. Using their small savings, Gario bet cautiously, and miraculously, won $90,000 in days. This windfall demolished Gario's defenses. Arrogance took over. Gario's a gambling genius. Instead of job hunting, Gario stayed home, convinced clicking buttons was easier than a 9-to-5 grind. The ending was written long ago. Foolish Gario just kept stepping into the same river. The savings and $90,000 profit vanished quickly. To chase losses, Gario racked up $300,000 in debt through loans and credit cards. Life spiraled into darker chaos than ever. Gario's days revolved around gambling. Winning meant splurging on the city's priciest takeout. Losing meant lying in bed, starving. Gario unleashed all anxiety, rage, and self-loathing on innocent Noah. Gario snapped at him constantly while he, kind to a fault, tried to soothe Gario with clumsy, loving gestures, like sending money via Venmo. Thinking Gario was just upset from unemployment, unaware his hard-earned $200,000, saved from teaching, was funneled into the insatiable void. That new year, Noah visited Gario's hometown to propose to their parents. Seeing his sincere, loving eyes and their parents' relieved smiles, Gario felt no guilt, only greed. Pulling Noah aside, Gario lied about a local custom requiring a pre-engagement dowry to prove sincerity. Trusting Gario completely, he emptied his savings and borrowed from his parents, giving Gario $200,000. That money, heavy with a good man's hopes, didn't last a week in Gario's hands, lost entirely. On March 28th, Gario remembers it vividly, the final loan repayment deadline. Gario knew they'd reached the cliff's edge, with no way out. Trembling, Gario called Noah, confessing everything in a broken, self-destructive voice. Expecting rage or a breakup, Gario was stunned by his long, heartbreaking silence. The next day, he appeared at Gario's door, exhausted and pained, having crossed half the country. Like a condemned criminal, Gario said, "I can't repay the money. Maybe I can only pay with my worthless life. If you'll still help me, I swear I'll never touch a cent again." His eyes held disappointment, anger, pain, but ultimately, love and reluctance to let go. He chose to believe in Gario, the Gario the world had abandoned, one more time. He took Gario's smartphone and bank cards, replacing them with a basic flip phone for calls and texts. He tackled the astronomical $300,000 debt, not fleeing but standing by Gario like a brave soldier. He contacted debt planners, helped Gario call creditors, and worked out a feasible repayment plan. Under his strict oversight and gentle companionship, Gario hasn't gambled since. On August 8th this year, we walked into City Hall and got our marriage license. As I write these words, sunlight streams through the window. Gario won't waste breath on if-onlys, or hope to erase the past or win everyone's forgiveness. Gario just wants to live earnestly, work hard, and spend the rest of their life making up for the colossal wrongs, cherishing the man who pulled Gario from the abyss against all odds. Gario knows true recovery isn't just paying off debt, it's a lifelong battle with inner demons. But this time, thankfully, Gario isn't fighting alone.